Hey, this is Braden with Pickleball Effect. Today we're taking a look at another paddle from Joola. This is the Solaire CFS 14. When Joola came onto the market, they introduced about 10 or so different paddles, and they signed a handful of pros. So it all happened pretty quick, and the pros were given some paddles to try out. And over time, several of them gravitated to this one as their primary go-to paddle. So I was interested in taking a look at it. Additionally, this paddle and Ben's Hyperion CFS 16 are the only two paddles in Joola's collection that have two brand new features that they introduced to the market that no other brand is using. So one of those is the carbon forged handle, while the other is the Hyperfoam edge. So these are the two paddles that kind of stand out in their collection as being the most advanced technology-wise. So when we're looking at those two technologies, the Hyperfoam edge is foam that's injected around the perimeter of the paddle. This is supposed to add stability and forgiveness to the paddle. And then the carbon forged handle is attached to the paddle. So normally the polymer core of a handle extends through the handle, but the polymer stops here and then they attach the carbon forged handle. So this does a couple of things for you. One, it adds flex to the throat of the paddle, which is going to add some power. And then it gives Joola the ability to control the shape of their handle, which is really nice. When we're comparing this paddle to Ben's Hyperion CFS 16, they both use the same facing material, which is this carbon friction surface. When you feel it, it does feel textured, it's directional, the grit is built into the material and is not sandpapery, so it should last longer. And then the core itself is this reactive core, which means it has smaller honeycomb cells, which is going to give you a little more power, and that's the same core that Ben's Hyperion has. When we're looking at differences between this one and Ben's paddle, the shape is different. So the shape is a little shorter and a little wider. So this is going to add some forgiveness to the paddle and move the sweet spot down a little bit on the face. And then it has a different thickness. So this thing is 14 millimeters thick, whereas Ben's is 16 millimeters. So the 14 millimeter thickness is going to add some power to the paddle and give it a little more bounce. With this paddle being 14 millimeters thick, you think it'd be lighter than Ben's since it's thinner than his, but it's not. It comes in at the same average weight of 8.4 ounces, which is on the heavier side. When I reviewed Ben's paddle, that was one of the major drawbacks of his paddle. It was very heavy and the weight lived in the head, which made it difficult to handle and maneuver sometimes. So that's something I'm gonna be paying attention with this paddle in the play test. If the weight has those similar drawbacks and issues as Ben's did, or if the shape of the paddle is going to distribute the weight just a little bit differently, which may make it just feel and play different. And like Ben's paddle, it has this white ribbed grip. I'm not a huge fan of ribbed grips or the color white because it gets dirty so fast, but that is what it is. This is the Solaire CFS 14. Let's go put it on the court and see how it plays. After drilling and playing with the paddle for over 2 weeks, here's my review of its performance. So I'm categorizing this as a power paddle. There aren't too many power paddles with a wider classic shape like this, and that's part of what makes this paddle unique. Its long handle, thinner core, and heavier weight combine to give the paddle plenty of power, definitely more than what the Hyperion CFS 16 offers. The power was coupled with a high spin rating. This deadly combo made the paddle a menace when attacking. Its easy power allowed you to keep your swing quick and compact, which was a major asset with counters and speed ups. I felt confident being more aggressive with balls below the net, knowing that I could generate more spin and put added pressure on my opponents that way. But you did have to be careful when you were attacking below the net because it didn't take much to send the ball long. The heavier weight was not as big of a factor with this one compared to Ben's CFS 16. I thought Ben's was too head heavy, which made it difficult to get power on backhand volleys, but that wasn't the same case with the Solaire. It still felt heavier, but it wasn't as hampering. As paddles get thinner, they typically get less stable and the sweet spot shrinks. However, Joola injected foam into the edges of the head that helps stabilize it and improve the size of the sweet spot, especially when you compare it to similar thinner core classic shaped paddles like the Carbon 2 13mm. This extra stability and forgiveness makes the paddle more player friendly and appealing for a wider range of players who want a power paddle. I thought it was most forgiving from side to side, but the ball did seem to die a little bit towards the tip of the paddle, and with the paddle already being shorter, this made it feel even shorter than it was. Talking about the feel and control of the paddle, it had a denser, firm feel to it, and the ball came off hotter, which made it harder to control. It took me a full 2 weeks of playing with it before I felt comfortable with my soft game. You had to earn your touch with it. I will say that my soft game got better each time I played with it, and it even seemed to feel softer in my hands over time as I adjusted to its feel. I've played other power paddles where I never truly gained or retained my touch with them. For example, the Engage Pursuit series. I love the Engage Pursuit series. I think they're some of the best power paddles out there, but I never truly connected with them when it came to feel and control. and I felt like I had a better touch with the Solaire CFS 14 compared to similar power paddles. So here's my recommendation. If power is what you're looking for and you prefer a wider classic shape, then I think you should take a close look at this one. It has a combination of power, spin, and stability that make it a great power paddle that can be used by a wider range of skill levels. It is harder to control though and takes time to rein in, but if you give it a couple of weeks, I think you'll find that you can adjust to it well like I did. However, if you haven't developed a decent soft game in general, then that will make this paddle harder to control. You may find yourself hitting balls deep and popping up dinks more often than you would like. So that's everything I have for you. Thanks for watching, and I hope it helped.